Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all being here this evening. On behalf of myself as Bosque County Judge, Commissioner's Court, my commissioners, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Koonsman, Mr. Harbison, Mr. Schmidt, we represent over 500 years of families, businesses, traditions, and values that we treasure dear to this county. I think it's safe to say we haven't adjusted yet to the second stoplight in our county. And we're certainly not far 1 inch of the Trans-Texas corridor in Bosque County. You know, there's a way of life. We could have lived in the Metroplex along with the hustle and the bustle and the crime and the noise and the pollution, but we've chosen to live here, as many of our families. It's a way of life that we value here, that we treasure. If we want to live in the Metroplex, we'll go to the Metroplex. We don't want the Metroplex at all. We drafted a resolution which was passed through Commissioner's Court in March of 05, and I would like to read and tender that tonight as our testimony of the record. The resolution of the Commissioner's Court, Bosque County, Texas, opposing the Trans-Texas Corridor. Whereas the Trans-Texas Corridor Plan is being implemented as a result of the passing of House Bill 3588, which granted the Texas Transportation Commission sweeping authority. Whereas the Trans-Texas Corridor could be as much as a quarter of a mile wide with multiple vehicle lanes, train transportation, and right-of-way property within the corridor. And whereas the Trans-Texas Corridor would negatively affect local economies as well as rural Texas by splitting farms, ranches, communities, rural family cemeteries, uprooting wildlife, creating pollution, trash, noise, we're opposed to this. We've got a deep history here. We've got the Chisholm Trail that runs through this county. We've got a lot of old Indian artifacts and cemeteries in this county. We've got our beloved golden sheep warper that we whereas the tolls on the Trans-Texas Corridor would form a double taxation, would place undue hardship on many of our citizens. Whereas the projected cost of the Trans-Texas Corridor, which is estimated to be as much as $184 billion, will place an unnecessary financial burden on our taxpayers. And whereas the Texas Department of Transportation should provide a complete economic impact analysis of the proposed Trans-Texas Corridor on the existing IH-35, IH-30 corridors before any further development of the Trans-Texas Corridor takes place. Whereas Bosque County Commissioner's Court wants to protect those whose economies are dependent upon the millions of dollars per year generated along these present corridors. Whereas the 594-mile IH-35, IH-30 corridor running from Laredo to Texarkana is an established NAFTA trade route for Mexico and Canada bound truck-borne shipments traveling through the state of Texas. Whereas the Bosque County Commissioner's Court believes that the existing I-35 corridor must be expanded to support existing and future growth by taking advantage of the existing infrastructure and right-of-way. And this can be accomplished at a much lower cost than constructing a separate corridor and without disrupting local families, communities, and economies. Whereas the Bosque County Commissioner's Court strongly believes that other sources of transportation and technology should be considered, and the Texas Department of Transportation should develop viable, acceptable solutions to existing right-of-ways and future transportation issues. Whereas the placement of concentrated resource conveyances in the corridor will better enable terrorists to attack these resources and disable them, especially in remote rural areas. Whereas if House Bill 3588 is left unaltered, it will give the Transportation Commission legal authority to commence route selection and the right to condemn private property for its use in building the Trans-Texas Corridor. Whereas Bosque County Commissioners Court is dedicated to working with the Texas Department of Transportation, the Texas Transportation Commission, and other elected and public officials to develop solutions that will protect the existing corridor and resolve congestion, safety, and pollution issues that currently exist along the Texas highways. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Bosque County Commissioners Court opposes the Trans-Texas Corridor concept due to the negative economic impacts and the ones that we have just listed. It urges not only you, but the legislature and our other elected officials in the state of Texas to amend House Bill 3588 to allow further public input before implementing this plan. We ask now that you accept this report and document this as part of the public record for tonight. Thank you very much.